What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Hitting the Field. I'm back again this week. I'll be your host, Alex Funderburke. We have a great show for you today. Kennedy Collins, Jaret Kappelman, and Jon Alfano join us. We're going to be talking college football, and we're going to be talking NFL, and what an amazing week it was in the NFL. How about DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, what a catch over 3 Bills defenders. It was absolutely crazy. Play of the season. Stick with us. We have a great show.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Hitting the Field. I'm back again. I'm your host, Alex Funderburke. I'm joined by Jaret Kappelman and Kennedy Collins. Kennedy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. Jaret, how are you?
Good. It's been almost a year and a half since I've been a panelist, so it's kind of nice to be back where it all started.
For sure. And we have a bunch of great topics today covering the NFL and college football. But before we get into that, we have some breaking news in the NBA. James Harden has requested a trade out of Houston. Kennedy, what are your initial thoughts on this trade?
Well, even though it is breaking news, I don't think that it's shocking. I mean, James Harden has already shown that he's really tried to, build himself as a player, aside from other players. And I think bringing Russell Westbrook into Houston kind of sparked that. I think that he really showed that, his play, being James Harden, is what he wants to be. I think when he was with OKC, so I think right now, I'm not sure where James will go. There's a lot of teams that are in the running, of course, the Nets for sure. But I think James Harden is just showing right now that he wants to get back to being James Harden, and he doesn't want that counterpart. So this is not a shocking trade to me.
Jaret, where do you think James Harden is going to be going?
It's got to be Brooklyn. It's James Harden. He's going to get what he wants. I think it's interesting that he's requesting a trade, but I think it's also good for Houston. It's not panning out, let's be honest. We've gone at it for 5-6 years now, maybe more. It just is not working out. I think their best shot was 2 years ago when the Raptors won the championship. I think that was the Rockets' best chance at making a run at the championship, because I think the Warriors were weak that year with all the injuries. It just didn't work. The Russell Westbrook experience just did not work this year the way it happened. I mean, granted, coronavirus and the bubble maybe impacted the way the NBA season went, but preseason I had said the Rockets and Celtics were going to be in the NBA finals, and the Rockets deeply disappointed. So I think it's time to move on. And as you mentioned before the show, Kyrie could be in that deal, which Kyrie only played 25 games in Brooklyn, so yeah, there's a lot that could happen. So it's exciting though.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely exciting. Gives some fun NBA talk before the draft next week. But now moving back into what we were originally supposed to talk about today, college football. I want to start with the Big Ten. The Big Ten has been full of surprises so far this year. I mean, Northwestern is 4-0 and number 19 in the country. Indiana is in the top 10. They're at number 9 and they're undefeated. And then Michigan and Penn State have been huge disappointments. Michigan sitting at 1-3. Penn State at 0-4 for the first time since 2001. What has surprised you most, Kennedy, about the Big Ten so far?
I think, honestly, what surprised me most is just Indiana and Penn State. Just the contrast between the two, because for Indiana, they're fighting really hard right now. We saw in their game versus Penn State that game-winning 2-point conversion. So I think that we're seeing that Indiana is really fighting for a spot, because really they don't have anything to lose. I mean, getting ranked, I think, for the first time since, 1967, it's pretty much just winner go home for Indiana. But for Penn State, on the other hand, it just shows that there's a collapse in a lot of things. I mean, you lose 2 big running backs. Everyone's putting the heat on your coach right now. So I think right now they don't know if they're just completely collapsing or if there needs to be a lot of changes internally. So with Penn State, I'm shocked because 0-4 is not something we're used to with Penn State. But with Indiana, I'm really just impressed by how they're playing right now.
For sure. Jarrett, what has surprised you the most about the Big Ten?
Uh, I'm gonna have to go Penn State. So I switched up mics on us. I don't like that other one. But my brother texted me yesterday, and we have a little group chat with a couple buddies from home, and he's like, "What's up with Penn State this year?" And it raises a huge question because yes, it was a weird offseason, but for a team that is literally in the Big Ten champion talk every single season to be 0-4 and their season's already over. I think it just goes to show. I mean, there's something else going on there. James Franklin's a great coach, but I don't really know why he can't rally the troops this year. I I want to put the blame on coronavirus, short off season, bad recruiting season, but he's got to recruit in this atmosphere for a whole season. So what does that mean for the next class he brings in? Um, I I don't know. I really don't. You've produced running backs like Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders and Trace McSorley, great quarterback, but it's just the pieces aren't there this year. So I'm interested to see if they can bounce back and maybe just make light out of the season or just continue to be an embarrassment.
I think what shocks me the most is definitely Penn State too. I mean, they were number 8 coming into the season,
Something, yeah.
which we can get into why preseason rankings are dumb, but I mean that's a big shock. But is it time for Jim Harbaugh and maybe even James Franklin to go? Kennedy?
For James Franklin, I would say that it's a little bit too soon to say. For Jim Harbaugh, I think he's in a very tough position. With Michigan, same thing with Penn State. We're not seeing the season that we thought we would see. They started off with a really great opener and then played Michigan State, and it was just complete chaos from there. So I think right now they're seeing that there is a collapse somewhere. I think a coaching change would help that. I think they have a lot of things they need to work on their defense, offense as well. But I think with Michigan, definitely Jim Harbaugh has to leave. I think he's prepared for that, even though he's fighting a little bit. For Franklin, I'm not really sure right now that we can just go off and say, Penn State needs a coaching change. I think with the losses that they've had player-wise, it's a little bit tough to say that it's just putting it on the coaches. I think it's just a culmination of a lot of things.
Jared, what about you? Is it time for either coach to go?
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer on Harbaugh. 1-2 against ranked teams this year, which story of his career has always been against ranked opponents. I almost want to say he's gone before the Ohio State game because I don't think Michigan wants another embarrassment against Ohio State, and or maybe Michigan just says, hey, we're bad this year, so we're just going to keep Harbaugh for that Ohio State game, so when we lose, we can just blame him again. Because as we know, he's never beat Ohio State, and he will never beat Ohio State as the head coach of Michigan. So it's 100% time for him to go. James Franklin, on the other hand, one bad season. As I said, circumstances are different this season. Coronavirus, everything. I'll give him the pass. I'll give him the pass this year. But if this happens again, another 0-4 start next season, I would say for sure he'll get Will Muschamp and get absolutely chewed out.
Interesting. So you bring up Ohio State, which is kind of what I want to talk about next. A big matchup this Saturday, Indiana and Ohio State. I want to know your guys' thoughts on this game and who you have winning. Jarrett, we'll start with you.
I don't really think it's a big matchup. Let's to be honest, I think Ohio State is by far the favorite. I don't think this game will be close. Yes, Indiana's beat some good teams, but Penn State has not panned out to be good. Michigan's not good. Michigan State is not good. Rutgers is not good. Yeah, that's all I got. They're just not. They have not beat good football teams. Ohio State looks. I would say. I think Ohio State's number 2 in the country. I think they're better than Notre Dame. They could probably compete with Alabama right now, but I would say Ohio State's number 2 team in the country right now. I don't see a reason that Justin Fields is gonna let me down.
Kennedy, what about you?
It's definitely Ohio State. Just like Jared was saying, I don't really think this is a real competition. We see what Ohio State can do on both ends of the field. We know that they're going to dominate. So I don't really think, even with how Indiana is playing, that they're really going to come in and give Ohio State any real problems. I think that they're going to put up a fight. We see that they are ready to do that, but I don't think that they're going to beat Ohio State.
Like, you're
So,
going to have to beat Ohio State through the air because their rushing game
mhm,
is atrocious. Indiana
yeah.
cannot run the football. They're averaging like 2.5 yards a carry. They cannot
Mhm.
run the football. And I don't see on a, cold day where I don't know what weather's looking like for snow, rain, whatever, but I don't see how you're going to beat Ohio State in Ohio State through the air. I just don't see that happening.
So Take Me Out host Johnny Jackson has been waiting for me to come on here with a hot take so he could put it in his little clip if I'm wrong. Indiana's going to win this game. I have no reason to believe Indiana's going to win this game because, like you both said, Ohio State is the way better team. But I think Indiana's going to pull some magic, and I think they're going to win this game. But I might be crazy. I'm definitely crazy.
If
Don't
Indiana was home, I'd give them a better shot.
definitely don't bet on Indiana. Don't take my advice there. But I got Indiana winning.
Well, I already bet my
Moving.
house on Indiana based off that, so.
Dang. Well, you're gonna lose your house. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Moving on to the AAC, I want to talk about Cincinnati and UCF. Cincy blew out ECU 55-17. Desmond Ritter continued being Desmond Ritter, 4 total touchdowns, 327 passing yards, 75 more rushing yards. And then on the flip side, UCF beat Temple 38-13. Now we have a big matchup in Orlando this weekend. Jaret, what does UCF have to do to win this game?
Just show up. That's it. They just have to show up and not beat themselves. UCF is 100% the favorite in this game. You cannot convince me otherwise. The game is in Orlando. Cincinnati is a great football team, but UCF, if you account better coaching, is undefeated this season. So the talent-wise, UCF is the better team, top to bottom. There is absolutely no reason in my mind that UCF should lose this football game. Cincinnati's offense cannot compete with UCF's offense. Now, granted, that Cincinnati defense was really good. We also said that 2 years ago when they came in here, when College Game Day was here, and UCF blew the rails off of them. I do not see a reason why UCF does not win this game by 14 plus. And if they don't win this game by 14 plus, and if they don't win this game at all, I think the arrows and everything is going to be pointed at Josh Heupel.
Kennedy, what are your thoughts? What does UCF have to do to win?
Well, I think right now we're seeing that Desmond Ritter is he's in rhythm. He's rushing and passing, so he's getting it both ways. I think UCF's defense is really going to struggle. I think they're going to have to be quicker getting off the line, which is a problem right now because we're missing so many players and having such young talent step up. But what I like to see in our Temple game was just to see how the young players were making names for themselves. We saw Tatum Bethune had an interception, same thing with Corey Thornton. And those are just young freshmen Tatum Bethune is a sophomore, but still we're seeing some young players that are making names for themselves and making big plays. Then, of course, you have experienced players coming in. So I think with our defense, if we can be quicker off the line, just being a little bit more careful, I think our defense will have a problem just with not necessarily that their offense is faster than ours, definitely not. But I think we're going to struggle a little bit on defense. But as far as offense, we saw what Dylan Gabriel is going to do. We saw Greg and Otis, and just our entire UCF offense is going to cause problems for Cincinnati. But the defense, that's going to be a really big challenge for this game.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think it's definitely going to come down to our defense. I think the offense is going to have to score almost every drive, it's going to feel like, because I don't know if the UCF defense can hold Desmond Ritter in check. If Cincy wins this, do you think they can get into the college football playoff, Jaret?
If Cincy wins it, I don't see how Cincy would lose another game. I actually said preseason that this game would be battle of 2 undefeated, and they'd probably meet again in the American Championship. Now, that is very unlikely to happen, that these teams were to meet again in the American Championship, because UCF is 2 games back. But if Cincinnati wins this game, I don't see a reason why they should not be top 4. I would argue that Cincinnati could compete with Notre Dame because, again, Notre Dame did win and they looked good, but I do think they are a tad bit overrated. I think on neutral ground, Cincinnati has the defense to compete with everyone. Now, you just heard me shred apart that UCF is going to win this football game, but Cincinnati is a good football team. The only reason I'm picking UCF is because they've actually played fourth quarters this season. And Cincinnati has had one close game, and it was week 2 against Army, and it really wasn't close. So I'm going to take experience in the fourth quarter, even though it's never been successful for UCF. I'm going to take experience in the fourth quarter. I think Dylan Gabriel is going to step up and deliver another 600-yard game and be the hero of UCF. But no, Cincinnati wins this game, they should 100% be in playoff talk.
So, Jared, you kind of like beat me to it, but what are your predictions for this game? We'll start with Kennedy.
Oh my goodness, that's a tough question because I mean we know exactly what this UCF offense is going to do. We know that Dylan Gabriel is going to step up. We know that we can win it in the air, and we're also because I mean Marlon Williams is one of the nation's leading the nation in receiving yards. So I think, and of course with Jay Flash, we're saying that we have a very versatile offense. But I definitely think that the speed of Cincinnati's defense is going to cause a problem. Earlier in the season, we saw that Dylan Gabriel can struggle in the pocket a little bit. It's going to be really difficult, especially with a team that's averaging about 5 sacks a game on defense. So I think, like I said, it's going to come down to whose defense performs better. I think that our offense is definitely the better offense. I don't know how well our defense can perform, especially when you have a quarterback that's, able to run the ball. So I think this is a really good game for Cincinnati. This is going to be a tester game for UCF.
Jared, what's your score prediction?
You already know it's going to be wild. 63-44 UCF is going to come out on top. I think Cincinnati really mimics, or I think Memphis really mimics Cincinnati pretty well offensively. And I think UCF really had a good answer for Memphis through 3 quarters against Memphis. So I think if they just game plan for the fourth quarter and actually play second half, I am fully confident in UCF to win. Josh Heupel's on the hot seat. This is a must-win game for him. I think he's going to pull through. I truly do.
I'm going to go 55-52 UCF in overtime. I think UCF is going to pull it out. But I would not be shocked if we saw Cincy win this game. I mean, they're such a good team, top to bottom. I mean, they don't have a lot of holes. If that UCF, go ahead.
I feel like this is the game where Heupel doesn't even have a kicker available. I feel like everything's go for it on 4th down. The only time he's going to punt is if he's in his own territory or if it's more than 4th and 5. I don't see a reason to ever kick a field goal. I don't see a reason to ever punt the football. This is a Madden game. Go at it like it's Madden and college football.
I'm with you. If I'm Heupel, there is not a kicker touching the field unless it's on a kickoff after a touchdown. Like, you are going for it every time. Kind of have to, because that Cincy offense is going to score on the UCF defense. And if the UCF defense can get 1 or 2 takeaways, UCF might be able to pull away. But if they can't force a turnover or get to the quarterback, that defense is in trouble. Now shifting to a team that beat UCF, Tulsa. I mean, they had a crazy comeback on Saturday against number 19 SMU. They were down 24-7 at halftime and then 24-14 at the end of the third quarter. And now the Golden Hurricane are ranked for the first time since 2010. How do you guys feel about that UCF loss now? Kennedy, we'll start with you.
I mean, Tulsa has shown that they are going to upset any team, but I think we have to give it to Tulsa because they keep their foot on the pedal. I think in this game against SMU, we really saw, SMU didn't score in the entire second half. So, looking back at UCF's game, we're not really surprised because Tulsa's fighting through all quarters. And like Jared was saying, at the end of the day, it comes down to fourth quarters or second half sometimes. And they're really showing that they're going to perform from the start of the clock to the end of the clock. And I think that's really important to see. And I think it shows that it doesn't matter who you're playing against, who is ranked and who's not ranked. They're going to come in, they're going to play from stop to whistle. So I think this just showed that even though they did beat UCF and it was an upsetting loss, it's not really surprising now because we see that they are capable of doing it to anyone.
Jared, how about you?
I'm still mad about that Tulsa game because it was 23-5. But so what sets up an interesting scenario is Tulsa has a chance to play for the conference championship. Now, what could be interesting is that it could be a rematch of their last regular season because if Cincinnati wins this game, I believe they are a lock I'd have to double check that. No, they have 2 games left in the conference. So again, I don't think they're going to lose to Temple. But we could see an interesting scenario where Tulsa and Cincy play in back-to-back weeks, and we already know how hard it is to beat a team once, but to beat a team twice in back-to-back weeks is extremely challenging. That's where I think this could be to Tulsa's advantage. Obviously, Cincinnati, if they go into this undefeated, will look at it as, oh, well, we could be playing for the playoffs, but Tulsa could be looking at it as, we're the American, we're trying to go to a New Year's Six. My thing here for Tulsa is they have been the comeback boys all season. They came back down 23-5 against UCF. They had another comeback this past weekend against SMU. I think Tulsa has a special team. That takes strength to not give up in a game, especially down that much. We've seen it time and time again. UCF always fails to come back. Tulsa has not failed to come back this season. So I actually think Tulsa matches up pretty well with Cincinnati up and down the field. I think their offense is very good. I think their defense plays very well against Cincinnati, stopping the run, which is something that you need to do against Cincinnati. So as I said, I probably went a little off topic here on the SMU Tulsa game, but I'm actually excited to see that Tulsa Cincinnati matchup in the last week of the season.
Yeah, no, I mean, this Tulsa team kind of reminds me of that 2013 UCF team that went to the Fiesta Bowl. They're not necessarily winning at halftime, but no matter what that deficit is, they're going to come back and they're going to make it a game. But I mean, how about the state of Oklahoma? All 3 FBS programs there are ranked now. You got Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. I mean, that's super impressive. Moving into our next conversation, the Heisman. I mean, Kyle Trask kind of put himself in the Heisman conversation this week after a huge performance in the Gators' 63-35 win over Arkansas. Do either of you think Kyle Trask has a legitimate shot at the Heisman? Kennedy, we'll start with you.
I didn't want to say it. I wrestled with it because, I mean, he's putting up numbers. I can't, argue with the facts that he's really doing well. And I think that game against UGA really showed and really was what put him into the conversation. But I think with Kyle Trask, we don't want it to be him because, of course, I think there's other contenders that I still believe will take the Heisman. But he's putting up numbers and he's showing a little bit more consistency, and this is what you want to see for the Gators. So like I said, he's doing it in the air, which is really good to see. You're passing for over 2,000 yards this season, and you still have some games to play. So you're showing really good signs, and then coming in replacing Felipe Franks, I think just really shows that he's stepping up. He's pretty much going against the grain of what everybody else is saying, and he's putting up numbers, and he's doing exactly what the Gators need him to do right now.
Jaret, how about you? Do you think Trask has a legitimate shot?
What blows my mind is that every single coach in the UF locker room said that Felipe Franks was the best quarterback they had for 3 seasons or 2 seasons. It's mind-blowing to me. I think Trask has actually been in the Heisman talk since week 1. I just think it went unnoticed because it's a Florida quarterback. Because let's be honest, there has not been a good Florida quarterback since Tim Tebow. Kyle Trask has now changed that. I mean, we can say Will Grier, but then that whole situation. I mean, honestly, if Florida could have gone on to a national championship the way Grier was playing that season. But I think Trask has actually been under the radar. I think that A&M loss kind of hurt his initial push for Heisman, but I keep a close eye on Florida just so I can talk to my brother and basically trash talk him. But my point is that Trask has been lighting up every single game. 4 touchdowns, 400 yards, or 6 touchdowns, 500 yards. He's had solid games. I don't really think he's had a bad game. Even that A&M game wasn't really a bad game. He just didn't make the clutch plays when it mattered. I mean, I think what's going to help him is that Ohio State's not playing a full season, and Trevor Lawrence got COVID. So I think it's his award right now to lose. He's played the full season. They've only missed 1 game to LSU. I truly think it's a Trask award to win.
Jaret, who are your top 3 Heisman candidates at the moment?
Trask, Lawrence, Fields.
Kennedy, what about you?
I'm going to go Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence.
Mac Jones is a good pick, too. He flies under the radar. I feel like he flies under the radar for a lot of people, too, because I don't even think of him first when I think of Heisman.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a dark horse. And I think two other dark horses who like maybe should be in that conversation but aren't are the two quarterbacks who are going to be playing in Orlando on Saturday, Desmond Ritter and Dylan Gabriel. I mean, Dylan Gabriel has 2,774 passing yards and 24 total touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. I mean, he's putting up Kyle Trask-like numbers. He should be in that conversation. Do either of you have any dark horses?
Sadly, no. If you're not in the power, if this is a Power 5 award.
Mhm.
To be fair, like Mackenzie Milton finished 8th in UCF's undefeated season. Dylan Gabriel's not going to even finish top 20 with a 2-loss team. So as much as I would love to see it go to a night or a group of 5 team, it won't.
I agree. Kennedy?
And I think, I mean, even just taking it from the perspective of Dylan Gabriel is putting up numbers as a sophomore and a true sophomore. So I think we saw the same thing with Justin Fields. Justin Fields performed really well last year, but, because of Tua's performance, we had to give it to someone else. So I think with Dylan Gabriel, he's also in a really good position to, maybe be in the conversation next year or the year after, depending on what he decides to do. But I think he's definitely a dark horse, a little bit biased, of course, but I think that there's a lot of other candidates within this race. I think the running backs that are also in the conversation are dark horses, I guess you could say, even though we kind of figured that running backs probably won't win, especially not this year. But I think Dylan Gabriel is in a really good position to possibly be in the conversation and maybe, finish higher than Mackenzie or maybe take it all. I'm not sure.
All right. Thank you guys for joining me. Jaret will be back in the next segment when we talk NFL. Kennedy, I hope you have a great day. Thank you for joining me. And we will be back after this break. Stay with us.
Good morning, fellas, except for Andre.
KG in the building.
James Harden is a stat pack.
That is not, you're right.
He's the best scorer.
He has 120 straight points now.
Bro, 120 straight points now. He doesn't back.
All right, let's do this. Let's get down to business, guys.
He's like Russell. He still got Aaron Gordon, PJ Tucker, and them boys. Come on now.
What about Carlos? Tom Brady is the son. Facts.
I think it's kind of special, though.
What? What are you talking about, man? Crazy, man. Don't ever say that. This is your dad,
Welcome back, everyone. And now we're going to switch to the NFL. And joining us now is my fellow Newsom High School alum, Jon Alfano. Jon, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. And I want to jump right into probably the biggest play of the season so far in the Cardinals-Bills game. Texans fans were definitely kicking themselves as DeAndre Hopkins caught a Hail Mary over 3 Bills defenders to win the game. I mean, I just kind of want to start off on maybe bashing the Texans a little bit, but how bad was that trade, Jared?
Terrible, because I love all the memes. I'm a meme guy, people that don't know that, but it was like the Thanos one, like, did you trade for Hopkins? What did it cost? Nothing. It was like, that's awesome. Like, they literally costed nothing, and the Cardinals took a zero-risk play to get who was arguably the number 1 receiver in the NFL at the time, which I'm still sticking by. When you said trade, I thought you were asking about my fantasy trade when I got rid of Hopkins, but we're not going to talk about that. No, that was a great catch. Wow. Oof. Wow.
Yeah,
That's all I got to say is wow.
Play of the season so far. Jon, what were your thoughts on that play?
Well, first of all, I agree that Bill O'Brien was definitely the MVP of that game by trading the Cardinals down for packet Doritos. But that was an incredible catch. That will be remembered for ages. Probably Jordan commercials are going to have a field day with it. Also, more importantly, it put the Cardinals in first place in the NFC West, which is just amazing.
Yeah, no, that slides right into my second question. How legit are the Cardinals? Like, can they make a run here, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it, or you talked about it. All the shows mixed together, and when we talked about it, but we said the Cardinals. I think it was when the Cardinals were playing the Seahawks, and we said if they win this game, they could be a legitimate contender. I don't think there's any question now if they're a legitimate contender. They're here to compete. Wow, Kyler Murray. Now, granted, they lost to the Dolphins last week, which was not good. But, to come out and win a game on a Hail Mary against the Buffalo Bills, now that's something to talk about. I think their issue overall, though, is consistency. Kyler Murray turns it on late. He's not looked consistent through the air, which I think come later in the season and in the playoffs, playing from behind, you need to be consistent in the air. So, if you don't fall behind, it's not an issue, but Kyler Murray needs to become a more consistent passer for them to be a really good team.
Yeah, John, what do you think? Is this Arizona Cardinals team a legitimate contender?
They might be a year or two off, but they are definitely in contention for the playoffs. They've got a developing young star in Kyler Murray. They've got one of the best receivers in the game in T-Hop, and they have a solid rushing attack with Kenyon Drake. The problem for them, or actually no, hold on. They've been in almost every game this year. They got punched in the mouth by the Panthers, and that was the one game they weren't relevant in. But ever since then, they've looked almost unbeatable except for the Dolphins. And they're developing really quickly. I think in maybe a year or two, they're going to be a force in the league.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think they might still be, a year or two ahead of schedule. They're kind of like the Miami Marlins were in baseball. They're a little bit ahead of schedule. They're a lot of fun to watch, though. But, hey, this Thursday night, a big game. Cardinals, Seahawks in Seattle. Jaret, what are your predictions for that game?
I think it's going to be a close game. Russell Wilson has not looked that good as of late. The Seahawks in general have not looked good as of late. They've lost their last two. I do still favor the Seahawks here. I like the Seahawks. I've always loved the Seahawks at home. They're undefeated at home this season. I think Russell Wilson's going to find his form again. Plus, I think the Cardinals – on a short week, you're still riding the high of a Hail Mary win, and I think that kind of hurts your preparation for a week. Like when you have an exciting win like that, it kind of hurts you going into the next week. I don't think they're going to have enough time to just come back down to earth and say, hey, we got a new football team, new week, forget last week. They are professionals, so hopefully they can do that. But I'm taking the Seahawks by 7 in this one.
John, what about you?
As long as Russell Wilson is the Seahawks QB, they will always be in a game. He's incredible. He had a pretty bad game yesterday, to be fair, but the season has been incredible. And the Cardinals, they can match the Seahawks on offense, but the Seahawks' defense has been dreadful this year, on track to be one of the worst in history. So I believe the Cardinals have a legit shot of knocking off the Seahawks and taking a firm hold of the NFC West crown for this time being.
I completely agree with you, John. I think this is the Cardinals' game to lose. Like, they're coming in, they weren't expected to be here this season. I think if Kyler can score on that Seahawks defense, I think it's going to put the Seahawks in a bit of a bind. But moving on to the team who beat the Cardinals last week, the Dolphins, they had a nice 29-21 win over the Chargers. Tua looked good. He hasn't necessarily looked great so far, but he's been pretty good. Jaret, what has impressed you about Tua the most so far?
The fact that he understands what a game manager is. That's tough for young quarterbacks, I think. They just want to come out of the gates and be this rookie hero, but he understands his role. He understands the role the Dolphins have put him in. He understands that he is not here to be the Aaron Rodgers, the Drew Brees of the team. He's here to be the game manager. I don't even know who to compare him to because I'm not going to even say Tom Brady because that's just kind of way out of proportion. He's just there to make the plays that are called. There's really just nothing else to say. I think it was interesting because, battle of Herbert and Tua. I said Herbert was the best quarterback going into the draft, and I think Tua outperformed him yesterday, which was interesting because I think Herbert was by far the best rookie quarterback going into this week. I think Burrow was hot on his trail, but I'm just going to say it. Tua and the Dolphins, they have a chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I mean, that team is kind of scary, and it could come down to Week 17 when they play the Bills. The division could come down to that game. John, do you think the Dolphins can catch the Bills?
I haven't looked much at their schedules. I'd say the Bills are the better team in general. But the Dolphins have momentum, and they've clearly bought into Brian Flores' system. That's what's getting them so far. Tua, he hasn't lit the world on fire, but he's avoiding the mistakes and doing enough to get the Dolphins the win in any game. And the Dolphins played hard at the end of last year, and then in the offseason, they got a lot of talent that's helped them blossom into what they've become. So the AFC is very crowded, but if the Dolphins keep up their winning ways, then they'll make the playoffs for sure.
No, I completely agree. But so last week we talked about, mid-season awards, and everyone said it was Justin Herbert's rookie there to lose. If Tua continues like this and he continues to win, and Herbert keeps up his stat line but continues to lose, can Tua sneak in and grab the Rookie of the Year, Jaret?
No, absolutely not. He just didn't play enough games, simply. Right now, it's between Herbert or Burrow. I could even say Jonathan Taylor would be ahead of Tua. It's simply not possible for Tua to win this year. Plus, he's not even putting up anywhere close to numbers to even get the award. Doesn't matter how many games you win. You can go 16-0. He just doesn't have the numbers to do it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think he started a little bit too late. Moving on into the next game, what the heck happened in Green Bay yesterday? I mean, the Jags hung tight with the Packers, and at one point they were even winning before the Packers ended up pulling out a 24-20 win. John, what went wrong for Green Bay? Why was this game that as close as it was?
I don't want to make excuses, but they were dealing with COVID before last week's game with the 49ers. They came out and punched him in the mouth, won that game easily, and I think they might have overlooked the Jags before this game, and it showed in the first half. They were down until late in the second half, I believe, and the defense has pretty good numbers, only allowed like 260 yards in the game, but it felt like the Jags were just imposing their will and driving down the field, but couldn't finish the job. Sorry, because I didn't say Trevor Lawrence from the Jets. But.
So, Jared, what was your takeaway from that game? Because I was left in shock.
Just second half adjustments from the Jags, I think. I mean, it's tough your first drive in the second half. You hit a nice pass play, but I believe it was Devontae Adams fumbled the football. That's unfortunate. Then you have a good drive going down the field your next drive, and you turn it over on downs because you didn't want to kick the long field goal in Green Bay, which, fair enough. I mean, Mason Crosby's there, so it was an interesting decision. Then Rodgers does an uncharacteristic interception. So you're here 3 drives in, a whole quarter in, and you've done absolutely nothing on offense. And plus, James Robinson was kind of having a field day running. He was the only Jag to carry the football, so, the clock's ticking. You're not doing anything on offense. So I think the game just kind of escaped from the Packers. It just didn't go how they had game planned it. 2 turnovers, just, uncharacteristic. That's all. I think it kind of slipped their game plan. I still think they were in control the whole game. I mean, granted, they had to, touchdown in the fourth quarter to win it, but I still think they were in control the whole game.
So, John, is this a fluke, or do you think the Packers have a legitimate concern moving forward?
The Packers have an inconsistency issue. That was a major problem for them last year, and it looked like they'd solved it at the beginning of the year, but now it's rearing its ugly head again. Like, they've lost to the Vikings at home when they shouldn't have, and now they came very close to losing to the Jaguars when they should easily destroy them on paper. If they keep doing that, I don't see them making the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Jared, what do you think? Is there a problem in Green Bay, or
I don't know if it's a problem. John is 100% right. They do have a consistency issue. I don't know if it's like an issue though. You got to remember this team was 1 game away from Super Bowl last year. I really don't think it's like that big a deal that they almost lost to the Jags. I mean, as I said, you're not going to turn the ball over. Devontae Adams isn't going to fumble every game. Rodgers isn't going to throw a pick like that. I just think it's going to come down to, just because consistent. I mean, John's right. Consistency is a big issue for him. But, I mean, they have a good chance to go off next week into Indianapolis and get a big win there. And that happens, then they got a pretty light schedule for the rest of the season. So I 100% think the Packers are a Super Bowl contender. I don't think this is like a red flag.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't think it's a red flag. But if they come out and look bad again this week, I might get a little bit worried. Moving on to another inconsistent team, the Bucks. They got a much-needed, convincing 46-23 win over the Panthers. And if it weren't for the Hail Mary in the Cardinals game, Ronald Jones's 98-yard touchdown run would probably be the play of the day. What were your thoughts on that play, John?
Ronald Jones has really shown the world that he can be a legitimate starting running back in the league. A lot of people were thinking when they brought in McCoy and Fournette that it would be a running back by committee. But Jones has carried the bulk of the workload. And he's done a great job of it. I think he's top 10 in rushing yards this year.
Yeah, no, Jaret, what was your takeaway from that game or that play?
I mean, Ronald Jones is a beast. He was still having my thing when a player has like a big rush like that. I like to subtract it from their stats to see how good of a day they were having. I mean, he was still like 22 carries for like 97 yards around there, so he was still having a good day. I mean that touchdown just kind of capped off his day as a whole, almost hitting the 200-yard mark. But I think the big thing here is Tom Brady these past couple weeks has looked like Super Bowl Tom Brady when he was young. I'm talking 16-0 Tom Brady. I'm not talking game manager Tom Brady. I'm talking MVP 50 touchdown Tom Brady. He just looks really good. It's kind of scary considering their only kryptonite seems to be the Saints, which I guess is an issue because you're gonna have to run into them in the playoffs. But I've said it here: if the Bucks don't win the playoffs or don't win the division, they're gonna match up against the NFC East winner in the first round, most likely. I think again, I'm confused on how this playoff format's working, but if they play the NFC East team, they're gonna blow them out of the gates. Let's be honest. So I think the Bucks are a huge favorite going forward.
Yeah, and like you said, Brady looked like prime Tom Brady, 341, 3 touchdowns. If he continues to play like this, is there anybody in the NFC that can stop them? Because I think even if he's playing like this, I think they can beat the Saints. John, what say you?
2 games so far against the Saints have not looked promising for Tom Brady. The first one I could have forgiven because it was his first game in new offense with no preseason to work with. But the second one was inexcusable. I don't know what went wrong there. They just looked completely out of sync. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't worried in the first half of this week's game against the Panthers, but they pulled it together. And the defense began to lock down Carolina in the second half. In the first half, Teddy Bridgewater made a lot of good throws and kind of exposed the secondary, but they locked it down and got the dub.
Jaret, is there anybody in the NFC that can stop them?
I still have to say the Saints 100% can stop them. It hasn't even looked promising against them. Like the first game was a disaster. 2 weeks ago, I'll say, because we're in a new week, was a disaster. That game was over in the first half. I would say the Saints are their biggest competition. The Saints and themselves, because it seems to be they just beat up on themselves. Again, if they play in the playoffs, it'll come down to who's the home team, but the Saints looked better in Tampa, so it's almost like it doesn't matter. I would not say the Bucks are the favorite just because of their performance against the Saints.
Yeah, no, I just wrapping us up here. I completely agree. I think it's still the Saints NFC to lose, but if Tom Brady continues playing like this, it could get interesting. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. We had a great time. Hopefully you guys liked it too. I will definitely talk to you guys later. Thank you for joining me and stay with us. We have a rant coming up.
I'm in charge of the meeting this week. So you know what we're going to talk about? Basketball. The second thing we're going to talk about this week is basketball. Okay? And the third and last thing we're going to talk about is basketball.
Yeah. God, dude. It's ridiculous. I want to quit. Can I quit? Take that.
Look at the screen. What are we talking about this week?
Basketball.
Welcome back to Hitting the Field, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We had a great show, but for my rant, I want to talk about the Knicks. Please don't trade for Russell Westbrook. I mean, I get it. Russ is an exciting player, but he's not going to make you any better. Being a Knicks fan is a miserable existence. Trust me, I know. I am one. They are 693 and 997 in my lifetime. I know the pain that comes with this. Russ will be a fun addition, no doubt. But you have a bunch of young pieces like Mitchell Robinson, RJ Barrett, Frank Ntilikina, and Kevin Knox, who can be fun down the line if you keep them together and let them grow together. Trading for Westbrook would mean you have to give up one, if not two of them, plus draft picks. And you have Mitchell Robinson, who has the potential to be one of the best centers in the league. Do not, under any circumstances, get rid of him. Draft picks are far too valuable as well. So please, Knicks, please stick to the plan. Don't go in win now mode, because Russell Westbrook alone is not going to help you there. If your two best players are Russell Westbrook and Julius Randle, you're not going to win anything. So please do not trade for Russell Westbrook. And that'll do it for this week. We had a great show today. We're going to have a couple more episodes coming up. We're going to have a fun week of shows lined up for you guys. Stick with us, and we will see you next week.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me